Right now, somewhere across the world, a household is experiencing full warmth. There is no gas supply feeding into the structure, no electric heating unit running constantly in the background. There's no monthly energy statement waiting on the table to disrupt their budget. Only stable heat, consistent, dependable warmth that holds steady over time. The two elements responsible for this are so common that most people overlook them completely in daily life. One is sand, the same material found along riverbanks and building sites, or even right in a backyard. The other is coal, simple carbon pieces that have remained underground for millions of years, waiting for practical use. When these two materials are combined correctly, they form something that large energy systems have long kept out of public understanding. This is not about extreme survival living or remote mountain setups. It is about practical application in normal homes, normal neighborhoods, and for ordinary families trying to manage rising living expenses. Heat is one of the most fundamental human requirements. Cold conditions cannot be negotiated with. Either warmth exists, or it does not. Without it, every other difficulty in life becomes heavier. For most of history, people relied directly on local resources to stay warm. Wood, coal, dried plant material, and other naturally available fuels were used in simple systems. Over time, industrial development changed this relationship. Pipeline networks, electrical grids, and centralized fuel systems gradually replaced personal energy independence. People became dependent on infrastructure they do not control. This means that in cold conditions, access to heat depends entirely on external providers and pricing systems outside individual choice. That creates long-term financial pressure that many households simply accept as unavoidable. In reality, it is a structured system, and once the structure is understood, alternatives become visible. At the center of this idea is a thermal storage approach using dense material layers. Sand is one of the most effective substances for holding heat and releasing it gradually over time. This principle is not new. Earlier civilizations used thick, natural materials like stone and clay in building design to trap warmth during the day and release it later when temperatures dropped. Modern convenience replaced many of these older methods, and over time the knowledge became less common. However, the physical principle never changed. Coal serves a different role in this system. When it is burned under proper conditions, it produces sustained high-level heat output relative to its size. The issue has rarely been the material itself, but rather inefficient usage. When a controlled heat source is paired with a high-capacity heat-absorbing medium like sand, the behavior of heat changes. Instead of disappearing quickly into open air, energy is stored and released gradually. The result is a slower, more stable distribution of warmth that can align better with household needs. The idea centers on a contained burning area surrounded by dense sand layers. As fuel is burned inside, heat spreads outward in all directions and is absorbed rather than lost immediately. Normally, open flame systems allow heat to rise and escape quickly into the surrounding space. That leads to rapid loss of energy, but within a storage-focused structure, heat is captured instead of wasted. The surrounding material holds it and releases it over time in a controlled way. This approach reduces dependence on continuous fuel consumption and shifts warmth into a stored form that lasts longer than the active burn period. This method changes the entire relationship between heat generation and heat loss. When a combustion source is fully surrounded by sand, heat begins transferring into that surrounding material from the very first moment ignition occurs. The sand draws in thermal energy and retains it within its structure. What surprises many people is how long this retained heat can last. Sand is capable of holding thermal energy for extended periods even after the fire source is no longer active. This is not limited to a short cooling window. It can continue to emit usable warmth for 6 hours, 8 hours, and sometimes even 12 hours after the fuel has completely finished burning, depending on how thick and dense the thermal layer is. That single property reshapes the cost equation entirely. Instead of maintaining continuous fuel consumption through the entire night, the system allows a single efficient burn to carry the heating load while the household is asleep. Coal plays a specific role within this structure, and it is often misunderstood. In common discussion, coal is usually associated with large-scale industrial energy production. However, that is not the type of usage being described here. Small-scale combustion, when properly controlled inside a contained environment, behaves in a different manner compared to industrial burning systems. 3 main factors determine performance: airflow, combustion temperature, and burn duration. When these variables are properly managed, the fuel produces steady, high-output heat while reducing wasted energy. Most inefficient results come from treating coal as if it behaves like wood, where it is simply ignited and left to burn without control. Coal requires a more structured approach. Airflow is the most critical element. Oxygen supply must remain stable and controlled to maintain proper combustion conditions. If airflow is too strong, the burn becomes excessively fast, and fuel is consumed quickly, producing heat faster than the surrounding sand can absorb it effectively. If airflow is too weak, combustion becomes incomplete, reducing efficiency and creating more waste byproducts instead of usable heat. The optimal condition is a balanced, steady airflow that maintains consistent combustion while allowing thermal storage materials time to absorb energy as it is released. In simple systems, this can be achieved through a regulated air intake at the base of the chamber structure. Temperature control is equally important for storage efficiency. Sand begins to meaningfully retain heat only after reaching a certain thermal threshold. Below that level, it releases energy quickly and does not store it effectively. Above that threshold, its capacity to hold heat increases significantly. Coal, when burned under correct airflow conditions, naturally reaches and sustains temperatures that fall within the effective storage range of sand. This compatibility is what makes the combination function efficiently. The physical construction of the system requires only a limited set of materials. An outer shell structure can be formed using clay, brick, or reused metal, and its purpose is to hold the sand in position around the combustion zone. The combustion chamber itself must withstand continuous high temperatures without structural failure. Fire brick is commonly used because it maintains durability under heat stress and is widely available. In many cases, used fire brick can be recovered from demolition material sources at very low cost. Once assembled, the system appears simple externally but functions with a layered internal process. Heat is generated, absorbed into sand, and then gradually released into the surrounding space over time. The result is a heating cycle, where energy continues benefiting the environment long after the active burn period has ended. From a cost perspective, this significantly reduces fuel consumption compared to systems that require constant energy input, such as electric heating or gas-based systems over the same duration. Over an entire cold season, the difference in energy usage becomes substantial enough to impact household budgeting in a noticeable way. This reality is especially relevant for households under financial pressure, where heating costs represent a major recurring expense. At a broader level, access to energy is tied to large infrastructure systems that require ongoing consumption. These systems are operated by large organizations whose financial structure depends on repeated usage over time. Within that framework, independent low-cost alternatives are not commonly emphasized in public communication. This is not presented as an external claim, but as a reflection of how incentive structures operate in large-scale energy distribution. Understanding this dynamic helps explain why certain efficiency-based approaches remain less widely known. Returning to practical application, the system is not intended as an immediate replacement for existing heating setups. It can be introduced gradually as part of a broader approach to reducing overall fuel dependency, rather than requiring a complete structural change in a single step. In most homes, people discover that a thermal mass setup performs best when it is focused on the primary living area. This is the space where families spend the majority of cold hours during the day and night. Conventional heating systems, whether powered by gas or electricity, can still remain in place. They function as backup support for other rooms or for periods when the thermal unit is not in use. This combined method reduces total energy demand without forcing an immediate full replacement of existing systems. The approach is gradual. It allows testing and adjustment before any deeper commitment is made. The sand required for construction is widely available. River sand, construction-grade sand, and even landscaping sand from hardware sources are all usable materials. What matters most is that the sand is dry and dense. If moisture is present, the performance drops significantly. Water absorbs heat quickly and then releases it in an unstable way, which interferes with controlled heat retention. Dry sand provides more stable storage and distributes heat more evenly over time. When collecting sand from natural environments, it must be fully dried before use. Spreading it out and allowing it to lose all moisture improves efficiency in a measurable way. Coal sourcing is also more accessible than many expect. Small quantities for home use can be obtained through agricultural suppliers, heating material vendors, and online distributors that ship directly to households. In rural areas, local suppliers often provide lower-cost access due to long-standing distribution networks serving farming communities. Only small amounts are required for a single room system. When the design is efficient, fuel consumption per unit of heat output is lower than most initial expectations. Performance improves further once the sand layer reaches full thermal saturation after repeated use cycles. Safety is a critical part of the system and cannot be ignored. Any process involving combustion carries inherent risks that must be properly managed. Ventilation is essential. A system that burns fuel indoors must allow continuous airflow to remove combustion gases from the living space. A properly installed flue or chimney directing gases outside is a basic requirement for safe operation in any enclosed environment, whether the system is homemade or commercially built. If proper venting is not possible, the system can be adapted for outdoor or semi-outdoor use. In this configuration, heat is transferred through a barrier such as a wall into the living space. This option is often preferred because it simplifies safety management. Structural safety is equally important. Materials used in the combustion zone must withstand prolonged high temperatures without failure. Fire brick combined with high-temperature mortar is the standard choice due to its durability under extreme heat conditions. Standard household bricks and regular mortar are not suitable for direct exposure to combustion heat, although they may be used in outer structural layers that remain distant from the core heat zone. Proper construction at the beginning prevents system failure later and ensures long-term stability. Carbon monoxide represents the most serious invisible risk in any combustion-based system. It cannot be detected without proper equipment. A carbon monoxide detector placed in the operating space provides a low-cost and effective safety layer. Modern detectors are affordable and reliable, offering continuous monitoring that supports safe operation without constant uncertainty. With these safety measures in place, the system becomes a low-cost heating method that relies on widely available materials and produces sustained warmth comparable to traditional systems that require far higher monthly expense. Over time, this creates a significant difference in household energy spending, especially during long cold seasons. When energy prices rise during peak winter demand periods, households using this approach are less exposed to sudden cost increases. They operate outside the direct pressure of fluctuating utility pricing. This shift creates financial stability by reducing dependence on external energy systems that adjust prices seasonally and under high demand conditions. At a broader level, modern energy infrastructure depends on continuous consumption. Large providers operate within systems that require ongoing usage to maintain revenue flow. Within that structure, low consumption or independent alternatives are not typically highlighted in mainstream communication. This reflects how large-scale systems prioritize sustained demand. Understanding this helps explain why certain efficient household methods remain less widely discussed. However, this is not about replacing entire energy infrastructure immediately. It is about gradual reduction of dependency and increasing household control over basic heating needs. The process is incremental, allowing households to adjust step by step rather than making sudden structural changes. What emerges is a practical shift in how heating demand is managed. It is not based on complexity or advanced technology, but on material behavior and controlled energy storage. The outcome is a system that reduces ongoing costs, uses accessible materials, and provides a level of independence that many households have not considered possible in modern conditions. This is the point where awareness turns into action. Not through large-scale change, but through simple application of what is already available. Take this information, evaluate it for your own situation, and consider how even partial implementation could reduce dependence on conventional heating systems. That decision begins with understanding, and it continues with practical steps taken at the household level. Please leave your thoughts about this content in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.